There we go. Okay, well, it is 9:30 a.m. and we have our guests coming in, joining us this morning for our webinar. So let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to talk about, and we'll just let people come in as they will. This webinar is being recorded, so anyone can review later on, and just so the panelists know. But thank you all for being here. My name is Emily Ham. I am the Community Engagement Manager with Greater Portland Council of Governments, and I will be the moderator for this panel. We are really excited to have all of our guests here today to be talking about digital equity, and what that means, and the efforts that are going on to bridge the digital divide in Cumberland County and the state of Maine. And we just underwent the first of its kind process to really identify digital equity needs across the state of Maine and in Cumberland County in particular. And these wonderful people here were integral parts of that process. And so we are really lucky to have them. We were lucky to have them, and going forward, they will also be a part of the actual implementation of our digital equity plan. So we are excited. This is, again, the first of its kind effort in the state of Maine, and really remarkable work has been done over the last couple of months to reach people who either don't have internet, have limited access to internet, or who have other barriers to internet, including affordability. So we are just going to jump right into it. I want to do as little talking as possible and let our panelists sort of take it away. But we have the wonderful Susan Corbett here, and I will just like to let you introduce yourself, Susan, and also start by telling us what is digital equity.
Great. Well, thanks, Emily, and good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be with all of you this morning. My name is Susan Corbett. I am the Executive Director of the National Digital Equity Center. The National Digital Equity Center was founded in 2017 with a goal of closing the digital divide here in Maine and across the United States. The National Digital Equity Center offers free digital skills classes to all Maine residents. There's over 40 classes that are available either online or at some of our partner on-site locations. We manage affordable device programs. We advocate and promote the FCC Affordable Connectivity Program, and we write digital equity and digital inclusion plans, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first, what are we actually talking about? What is digital equity and digital inclusion? So the official definition is that digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. We saw during the pandemic how deep the digital divide was across our great state. Students who couldn't connect to their teachers because maybe they didn't have broadband available to them, or perhaps the family couldn't afford a connection, or there wasn't enough of a connection for everyone in the household to be online at the same time. And the same with remote workers who were suddenly in a position where if they were working remotely, if they were able to with their employers, but couldn't because there wasn't enough of a broadband connection to support multiple people being on video conferencing all day, or maybe broadband wasn't available to them, or maybe they didn't have a device in order to become a remote worker. And then the third group that we were really concerned about were our older population who were already battling isolation and loneliness. And then we had a shelter in place order. And we had so many of our older adults across the state, no internet, no device, and lack of digital skills. Digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. We achieve digital equity by promoting digital inclusion, affordable broadband. We have the FCC ACP program that provides a $30 per month discount for families that meet the income eligibility guidelines, and for a $75 per month discount for any of our tribal members who live on tribal lands. Affordable equipment. Can someone afford a tablet or a laptop or a desktop? Digital skills training. Do they have the skills to participate in our digital economy? Public computer access. If you don't have a device or you don't have an internet connection, can you go somewhere? Our libraries are great places for people to go to connect to the internet, maybe apply for a job, and a host of other things. And then technical support. If your computer breaks or you have a virus, who do you go to? Who do you trust to fix your computer? All of those components of digital inclusion were addressed in creating the regional and tribal broadband partner digital equity and digital equity plans. I had the privilege of working with 13 regional and tribal broadband partners across the state. Each partner had a coalition. There was a great coalition that was spearheaded by GPCOG, and it was a pleasure to work with so many people with diverse backgrounds, and that were working with many of our most vulnerable populations. Each regional and tribal broadband partner had homework. They had to figure out what were the barriers to digital inclusion, all of those categories for all of the covered populations, and what were the recommendations to fix it. And then in the end, we had to create a budget, sort of a wish list budget of what it was going to take to fix all of it. It was a very short process. Each regional and tribal broadband partner did a fabulous job in a short period of time of gathering an amazing amount of information so that they could submit their reports to Maine Connectivity Authority at the end of April. And then during May, the Maine Connectivity Authority brought all those plans together in addition to the work that they were doing on a statewide level, and they created the State of Maine Digital Equity Plan. It is now in draft form. It's available to the public to take a look at, to comment on, see if something's missing, see if something doesn't feel right. And then in June, at the end of June, they'll take all those public comments and incorporate whatever they can into the final plan. And then in July, they will work on that plan. And in August, they'll submit that plan to NTIA, which is our federal government agency that is overseeing this project. Once it has been submitted to NTIA, then at some point, once it's approved, the state will be able to apply for funding to help our regional and tribal broadband partners actually roll out their plans on a local level. So lots of stuff going on right now, lots of work ahead of us. We've only just begun. I am just so thrilled that so many people across the state are engaged in digital equity and digital inclusion. And our long-term goal is to help close that digital divide and ensure that everyone has a broadband connection, a device, and the skills to participate in our digital economy. So thanks, and I'm happy to turn this right back to you, Emily.
Thank you, Susan. We're so glad to have you here. And you referred to GPCOG, so let's just dive into our role in this effort, in this statewide effort, really. I'm going to pass it off to Clara McCool to talk about what we are doing at the regional level here in Cumberland County to bridge the digital divide and address digital inequity. So Clara, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everyone. My name is Clara McCool. I am the Regional Broadband Coordinator for GPCOG. So just to give some background on how GPCOG got involved with broadband work, about 3 years ago in 2020, a few towns in the more rural parts of our county reached out and asked for support in their broadband projects. So trying to expand infrastructure to reach folks that were in the more rural parts of their towns. So we've been working in the broadband space for a bit now, but a lot of that work really focused on just expanding infrastructure. But like Susan said, access to the internet is a lot more than just having lines that run down your street. So back in November, we applied for the regional and tribal broadband partners program with the state so that we could implement a plan and implement a digital equity plan for Cumberland County. So once we received notice that we had been selected as the regional broadband partner for Cumberland County, we have spent the past 6 months, maybe 4 to 6 months, creating a regional coalition across the county. 20 different organizations worked with us to create this plan. And the main goal here was to sort of reach the covered populations under the grant. These include low-income households, older individuals, incarcerated or formerly incarcerated individuals, individuals with a language barrier, individuals with disabilities, individuals who are members of a racial or ethnic group minority, veterans, and then individuals who primarily reside in a rural area. So our coalition was made up of organizations that represented these populations, as well as some anchor institutions like libraries and adult education centers that sort of work with all of these populations and really act as a core partner in helping people get connected. So through this work, in order to create the plan, we reached out to a large amount of organizations and individuals across the county. We, with the help of the coalition, conducted 40 stakeholder interviews, held 4 focus groups across the county, and we were able to reach 286 individuals with our digital equity survey that we helped distribute. It was a statewide survey, but we helped with the distribution within Cumberland County. So the goal of this plan was to really identify what barriers people face to getting online and try to formulate some recommendations to how the state should spend their federal dollars on digital equity solutions. So that's sort of the work that we've been doing. Our plan has been created. We've submitted it to the state. And the state, as Susan said, is now getting feedback on their statewide plan. But hopefully once we get that implementation funding, we can continue sort of refining our county plan so that we can do some local digital equity solutions and start, implementing some of the solutions that we came up with in this planning process.
Great, thank you, Clara. And as Clara alluded to, we just wrapped up this big community engagement process. I'm the community engagement manager, and this was a process unlike any other because we were trying to reach populations who have greater barriers to internet access. And so our traditional means of reaching people, which is the internet itself, was not necessarily available to us. So at the very beginning of the process, we said, okay, how are we going to get creative and reach the people who experience the greatest number of barriers when it comes to accessing the internet? Of course, our minds immediately go to libraries. That libraries really have always just been such a vital resource in our communities, even more so during the pandemic. And so Amy Stone from the Bridgton Public Library became a partner very early on in this process. And has been really wonderful in supporting our needs and identifying the needs of people living in more rural areas of Maine. Cumberland County is unique in that we have the biggest metropolitan area, but there are a number of rural towns also within the county that need attention and have very unique needs. So Amy joined us very early on in the process. And I'm hoping, Amy, you can touch on, how the digital divide affects the lives of the people that you serve at the library, how you saw that kind of play out during the pandemic and where we are at right now in terms of identifying those needs. So I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here and to have worked with all of you people and to continue to work with all of you people. It's really wonderful. And so I think that each community is its own sort of unique ecosystem. And so one of the things that's unique about Bridgton is while it's in Cumberland County, it's on the border. And we have much more in common with the towns around us from Oxford County. And so in terms of delivery of service and funding, it definitely is a unique area. And we have unique connections to our communities around us. The Bridgton Public Library is also unique in that it is a 501c3 nonprofit and not a government entity, which allows us to have a lot of flexibility in how we provide our services and our service area identification. So we have people from Denmark, Harrison, Sweden, Brownfield, Casco. We have people from all around us who come to use our library. So during the pandemic, we were in a very unique position of having to reach out to all of these communities and to people who had transportation barriers, amongst other barriers, to make sure that they were okay. So we used the good old telephone. But it sort of brought to the fore this need that people have to stay connected and how we had very limited tools to do that. So I would say transportation continues to be a barrier in rural communities, particularly if you do not live on the rural route or the highway that cuts through your town, you are living on a dirt road. And forget that last mile, like you've got like miles to get infrastructure down to your house. And so transportation is definitely a barrier. And education was definitely problematic during the pandemic for homes that did not have the internet. The district really struggled with keeping connected to their students during that time. And libraries did not have the capacity to help in the ways that we do now, because we did not have the technology that we have now, or the resources. And so in helping families with education and with rural remote work possibilities, we saw a lot of people in our building in our limited ways and in our parking lots during the pandemic. And it really just brought to the fore the number of people who do not have internet in their homes. Our parking lot was packed every day with people using our free wireless. And it was different cars every day as well. It was not just the same ones. So, it really was a very visual example of how people did not have access to the internet. So today, the people that we see coming into the library are people who recognize that technology is part of modern life moving forward, and they don't know how to use it. Or they don't have their own devices, or they don't have their own internet. And so those are the people that we are helping every day. And so it is well beyond a digital divide of physical infrastructure and goes much deeper into access to devices and digital skills. And so those are the people that we are helping every day. I'm also on the Community Development Advisory Committee for the town of Bridgton. And in order to make sure that the community as a whole sees digital equity as something that is important to a healthy community moving forward, making sure that a digital inclusion plan as part of a comprehensive plan has been identified as a need in the town. And so we'll be working on that as well. So it is not just a library as an institution thinking it's important, but it's a community as a whole recognizing its importance.
Great. And I'm just as a follow-up question, can you speak a little bit to the extent to which this issue has been elevated amongst library directors and library the library community in general? Is this a really prevalent issue right now, or is it still needing some support?
So it is both. There's a recognition amongst library directors that they need help and they need support, because they are being asked to help and support every day. And they may not have the digital training or the digital skills that are required to help people, or they may have them, but they may not have the staffing or the capacity or the hours of operations that their community needs because of limited funding. And libraries serve as information and education resource centers and literacy centers, and lots of different kinds of centers and community centers. And there are so many parts to library service. And to make sure that they have technology support specifically is really important, because that's a skill set that it may not be part of their everyday, and they need to be able to support their communities. They may not have the technical training. They may not be digital natives. I would say most of them are not. So even having library directors receive training that is comfortable for them, that translates into them being able to help their communities, is really vital to, I think, the economic and educational health of our communities here in Maine, and particularly in rural areas.
And one last follow-up question. Can you define the term digital native for us?
Oh, so a digital native is someone who has grown up using technology for everyday activities. And so it would be somebody who was born in the last 40 years, who has had access to technology, but not only access to technology, but has incorporated it into their everyday lives.
Great, thank you. I
Yeah.
think that's a really important note to make, because a lot of the population in the rural areas are older populations. So that's one of the groups that we have to pay particular attention to in those areas. Clara and I and others in the millennial, sub-millennial populations take for granted that we really grew up with the internet. And so it's sort of second nature to us, but that is definitely something that came up over and over again, was the digital skills barrier.
Yeah. And it is really interesting too, when you talk about digital natives, in that, it is not just people who are younger, but people who are younger who also had access to technology, right. Which is not true of a lot of rural places.
Right.
And so it is not just about age, but it is also about access. And digital natives may not know more about how to explain how things work as well. They just take it for granted because it's a tool they've always had. Right. And so the assumption that a grandchild is going to be able to teach a grandparent how to use something may or may not be true, because teaching how to do something is a very different skill set from being able to use something.
Right. Yep, that's a really important distinction. Great. Well, I'm going to move on to another one of our covered populations that really stood out during our community engagement process. And that's folks with limited English proficiency. And so today we have Nathan Davis from Gateway Community Services here. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a nonprofit organization that supports the well-being of immigrants and refugees, both in the greater Portland area and also in the Lewiston area. And so this obviously is a big issue here in Cumberland County. We've had an unprecedented number of new Mainers in the last few years, and this was just really a standout population for us with some pretty unique needs. And so Nathan, I would love for you to speak about how digital inequity affects the populations that you serve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emily. Really happy to be with everybody. From the outset, just want to acknowledge I am a native Mainer myself, but work with Gateway as director of programs, and we kind of work as an intermediary for a lot of refugee asylee populations here in Maine. We do some community health outreach work, which particularly has a lot of intersections with some of the populations in shelter hotels, shelters here in Portland, and the Expo and different areas like that. And then we also do some education programming along with some youth programming as well. And so really kind of what I would like to share is some of the learnings that we've had over time in working with a lot of the community members we work with from many different age groups. I think there's some key dynamics to think about where we're talking about people from many different origins, locations, language ability, and also folks from the ages of, very, very young to very, very old. And so some of the dynamics that we find with the age gap still exist in these populations, but also when we think about language as well is a big issue. And so I think one of the key things to think about that we've really kind of learned over time and through some of the interviews is, a lot of families are really trying to figure out housing. We're in a housing crisis right now, and that is kind of the number one issue. And throughout that process, digital access is not only critically important, but hard to find, particularly if you are moving from location to location in a new location, like a hotel, needing to figure out how to access the internet there, if it's going to consistently be there. And then also, how do you engage, if you have children, how are they engaging in education, continuing education over the summer? Some of those are, definitely digital resources as well. So I just wanted to kind of name the breadth of kind of what some of this work is going to entail, and some of the comments that we've heard so far. But one of the major pieces that I think, another one of the major pieces that came out for us is that we build a lot of our infrastructure and services, particularly from a state perspective, federal perspective, on the internet now, whether that be applying for Maine Care, whether that be applying for SNAP benefits, whether that be accessing unemployment insurance. And so if you are, either new to the country, have recently arrived, a lot of times folks will either have a phone or some type of smaller device that isn't necessarily built to be doing those long applications on a phone. And so that becomes a barrier to actually accessing care as well, and then also finding the resources you need. And so a lot of times our community health outreach team is actually just helping people with the laptops that Gateway provides, with the some of the resources that we have as an organization to help folks navigate that process, not let alone the language barriers there. And so access to devices is really important. A lot of devices can be very expensive, particularly when you're thinking about some of the other pieces in somebody's life as they are trying to kind of build it here in Maine. And then also, not to mention the service contracts and things like that that can come along with a phone, that can come along with accessing a laptop and that kind of stuff. So those they kind of, you get past one barrier, but then another barrier will exist. And even if you get past all of them, then you're stuck with some of the language barriers that can be there as well. So you can have somebody, a community navigator, kind of help you through each one of those steps. But you had mentioned something about digital natives. And so one thing I wanted to mention is that being a digital native here in Maine can be very different than being a digital native in another location. And so whether that be some of the communication applications folks use, a lot of folks will use WhatsApp versus here, a lot of folks use text message, Facebook Messenger, those types of items. And then also, where are the different parts of the website you go to find, contact us, email us, like all of those pieces are also part of kind of being a digital native and knowing intuitively kind of where those pieces are. And so the last piece I just wanted to hit was the age gap as well. And so what we've seen with some of our education programming is, a lot of the younger students that we work with, yes, will have definitely, in most cases, a quicker learning around digital entities. So like, how to navigate websites and all of that, where parents might struggle for a little bit. And so what happens is then youth become knowledge bearers for their parents, as we were talking about before. But how do we bridge that for the parents who are trying to go through many different pieces of establishing their life here in Maine? So hopefully I tried to hit a few different angles there, but those are just some of the learnings we've had over time, and some of the things that came up in some of the community conversations here at the center.
Thanks so much, Nathan. Yeah, and I just want to also emphasize the relationship between the internet and access to the Maine workforce. And this is a really pertinent issue right now. As a lot of you know, Maine has the oldest population in the state, and we have many of our members of our workforce who are aging out, about to age out. And so we're sort of headed off, we're standing on the edge of a cliff in some ways in terms of our workforce. And the new Mainers that are coming in are really pivotal in terms of making our workforce sustainable. And often the first step for them is a work permit, right? And we know that that can take quite a long time to get processed, even longer if it's being done on paper. And so really having access to the internet is a crucial first step to getting them integrated into their local workforces. And so these are all really interconnected issues along with housing, but really to capture those people in our workforce, we need to make sure that there's reliable internet. So I thank you very much for speaking on behalf of those populations and doing the work that you're doing right now. Portland Adult Education and other adult education centers are also some organizations that are on the front lines of these issues. So we're lucky to have them involved as well. And hopefully we'll just continue to build out those resources. Thank you, Nathan. We'll come back to you, I'm sure, and talk more about that. I just want to now turn to Derek Morin at the Opportunity Alliance. And the Opportunity Alliance works with a number of populations among the covered population. So Derek, maybe you could just speak to who that includes and how the digital divide affects the lives of the people within those populations.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. My name is Derek Morin. I work at the Opportunity Alliance, and the program that I'm a part of is the contact center. And the contact center at the Opportunity Alliance administers the 211 Maine system for the state. 211 Maine is an information and referral helpline. So 211 Maine will help over 100,000 people a year. Here at the Opportunity Alliance, there's 50 different programs that help over 20,000 people a year. And a lot of it is direct service, our residential programs. We have a PATH program that helps, Maine's most vulnerable, the people without housing. And we have the mobile crisis program as well. As the Maine crisis line. So the demographics that we get mainly at 211 are about 300 calls a day, And the top needs are electricity payment assistance, heating fuel payment assistance, rent payment assistance, and the demographics are about 25 to 75 years old, the bulk of it. And when we get a call at 211 Maine, there are virtually no resources for something like internet payment assistance. It's more of, I think it's viewed more of a as a luxury than a necessity. But the beautiful thing about the broadband action plan that we're talking about today is that it kind of puts a spotlight on the fact that it's not necessarily it's not a luxury anymore. It's more of a necessity. Some of the feedback that we get from people calling that don't have access to the internet include people who are in the older age group. They are calling for basic needs, and a lot of the resources that we have that we can offer to people, they're moving more online. So something like My Main Connection, the Home Energy Assistance Program, or even, as you mentioned, Emily, applying for a job, something that simple can become really difficult for somebody who doesn't have access to the internet or the ability to, have a device to be able to, have an Indeed profile or something like that. So something that we all kind of take for granted, something as easy as going to a website and clicking on, the careers page and then scrolling through and finding something that kind of speaks to you, and at the click of a button being able to enter your information in or have it auto-populated or what have you. And that's something that a lot of us have been, grown accustomed to being able to do things with ease with technology. And we recently discovered, just by looking at some of the reporting, that we're people calling 211 for just directory assistance has gone up quite a bit. And in just talking with staff and figuring out why that might be, it's the people who either can't afford internet payment the affordability is just for the monthly payment, that's enough. But then having a working device and then being able to feel confident about the device that you have is a three-pronged kind of barrier it can be for a lot of people. And so people are calling because they're used to the times when you could just call somebody and get an answer. And so we're doing Google searches for people, and the biggest thing that we hear back is that, well, no, I can't afford it, or no, I'm not even going to get into it. It's sort of like learning a new language. So there is a significant barrier, but with technology and with the resources that the Broadband Action Plan is talking about bringing to the state of Maine, will give us some more tools to be able to help encourage people that there is help out there, not only for internet payment assistance or for securing a device, but also for the digital skills, or the skills that you need and the technical support that you need to feel confident in being able to use that technology. Here at the Opportunity Alliance, like I said, we have over 50 different programs, and all of them, in the feedback that we asked about, would you be able to use additional resources for the clients that you serve? The answers are a resounding yes. And especially here at 211, we could, knowing it and sort of being aware of it, we'll be able to offer that to people who call in and ask us for, to look up the number to the pharmacy down the road. Whereas, they would in the past maybe be able to look at a phone book. But everything is moving online. this plan is very welcomed news for us. Really happy to be a part of the coalition and the planning process, and looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Great, thank you, Derek. Yeah, and as much as we're talking about internet, I don't know where we would be without the telephone. We're grateful to have you as a part of our coalition, and look forward to seeing how we can work together going forward. So I just want to hand it over lastly to Michele from the Southern Maine Agency on Aging. And as the name implies, this is an organization that works with aging populations, as we've alluded to several times in this conversation. So Michele, I'll just hand it off to you to tell us a little bit about your work and how the digital divide affects the people that you work with.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So there's 5 agencies on aging across the state. So we serve York and Cumberland County, excluding Harpswell and Brunswick. So we serve adults who are over the age of 60, adults with disabilities, and then also care partners. And as everyone was talking, I'm like, yes, I agree with all those things. So I'm going to try not to repeat what you've all said, but kind of expand a little bit more, especially focusing on older adults and some of the barriers that we face. And like what many of you alluded to, I mean, we do a lot of our work by telephone. That's still kind of our main form of communication. We do serve a spectrum of clients in their need and comfort level with technology. Especially with the pandemic, we pivoted more online. So we do have like Welcome to Medicare seminars and different healthy aging classes, conversation things online. But not everyone's able to access those. So we do have services a lot over the telephone. So for example, someone who is new to Medicare, as we all know, just the idea of Medicare is scary. Where do you start? So we do seminars, but we also do offer telephone appointments and in-person appointments where someone would be able to sit down with a certified SHIP counselor and go over their different options, and that person would be able to help enroll them using the computer into the plan that they need. And then every fall, we do a big push for open enrollment to make sure that that plan is still the best plan for them. So we do have our information referral line, and we do have so similar to 211, where people can call in and have questions asked, and we offer in-person and phone appointments where we can help fill out applications for people. Especially with the My Maine Care Connection, all those things online, or housing applications are more online. And one of the barriers that we find is that a lot of those applications require an email address. And a lot of our clients don't feel comfortable having an email, don't know how to use it. We also have seen a big fear of identity theft, fraud, just kind of the scaries associated with using the internet. How do you keep that information safe? And we have had clients who have been, victims of scams and things. So it is out there. And unfortunately, that is one of the populations that are the biggest target. So kind of how do we help navigate, how to use internet and technology safely? The other thing I did want to point out as well is, I believe someone kind of talked about how the technology is no longer, luxury, and that still kind of has that notion there. But, technology can really be used for a lot of safety features for a lot of our clients. You think about, Amazon, turn on the lights, Amazon, do that, and a lot of that could be used to keep a lot of our clients in home safely. They could use that for medication reminders. So then that also is kind of setting that divide a little bit more of who has access to that, or who has a care partner who could set that up for them. How do they feel comfortable with that? So I also wanted to point that out as well. The other example I kind of wanted to point out too, going back to the pandemic, when we had the $850 Maine relief checks, and a lot of people needed to apply for the property tax fairness credit or apply for their taxes, and a lot of our clients don't normally need to do that, so they could do a form online. So that's where we were able to get staff and volunteers together to fill those forms out over the telephone for them. But then another roadblock comes to, do you have, you get verbal permission to fill this out on their behalf. But sometimes that gets sticky as well if you're essentially signing an application for somebody on the computer. They might not fully understand what the application process or the application looks like, even though you're explaining it to them. So kind of really walking carefully through that and navigating that.
Great. Thanks so much, Michele. Yeah, I just remember some of the conversations we had at our community meetings, and we were thinking of all the things that were connected to the internet within our homes. And it was an astounding list once we were done totaling how much of our lives is connected through the internet, from even our ovens, our smartwatches, our washing machines, appliances. So much of that is connected through the internet a lot of the time. And those are super helpful and sometimes vital technologies for older adults. So
yeah, the other example I want to actually point out, Emily, that you kind of mentioned, is some of our clients do have limited transportation, if any transportation, or mobility concerns. So going to the grocery shopping, can be a struggle, and then they might not have the technology skill or ability to use, Hannaford to go or to order groceries online to have it delivered, which would also be able to maintain some of their independence at home.
Right. Great. Well, thank you, Michele. I appreciate you being here and for your involvement in our coalition as well. So we're going to turn it over now to a Q&A session and just open dialogue in general. So if any of you have questions for any of our panelists or all of our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. We already have one here that I will kick us off with, and it's for Amy. And the question is, how is the Bridgton Library connecting with seniors and helping them connect to technology? And you kind of alluded to this, but maybe you could get a little bit more specific.
Sure. So we have a couple of different ways that we are reaching out. So our outreach coordinator, her name is Rachel, and she's amazing. And so she goes to the community center, which is around the corner, and they provide a wide variety of resources, including like navigation for heat assistance and things of that nature. But they also provide a senior lunch once a week. And so she goes to the senior lunch and she meets with the people there and talks with them about their technology. And then we offer technology help at the library from 2 to 4 by appointment or drop-in every weekday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So from 2 to 4, she is available for one-on-one assistance. And so people can bring in their own devices or they can use our public computers. And so that is a very direct one-on-one relationship that Rachel has established over time with people who then tell their friends, who tell their friends. And so now we have people coming in and asking for Rachel. We are also offering, we are an NDEC partner. And so we are offering those in-person workshops. However, people, while they can set an appointment, we have a problem with people coming to a thing at a time. And I wouldn't say it's a problem in that it is difficult for people because of transportation barriers, or they have a doctor's appointment, or whatever happens in life. And so we encourage people to sign up for the online classes. And then again, we have somebody available to sit with them while they're doing the one-on-one class online. And so they seem to be very comfortable with that. And so the types of classes that we offer, we're focused very much on the fundamentals. We also have an adult ed program that is also an NDEC partner that focuses on the higher level things. But for the introductory classes, we offer internet safety, applying for the Affordable Connectivity Program, using Facebook, things like that, how to set up an email account and keep it safe. Those are the types of things that we encourage people to sign up for at the library. So, and I don't know if the Agency on Aging, if you also encourage people to seek out those classes where they are. Yeah, they're really great. The iPhone Basics is definitely the winner though, for our clientele. We have a lot of people with iPhones that they were given iPhones from their kids and they don't know how to use them. And so they come in and they learn how to do really simple, basic things. Well, we consider them simple, basic things, but for people who are used to using a phone that is on a wall, it is a whole new world of it's a camera and, you know, I can talk into it and it will type my words and things like that. It opens up a whole new world for them. So that's been really successful as well. And we are always open to people come in and just ask questions, and we do our best to connect them to the best resources that are available.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, and I just want to say that I think, especially for aging adults, it's really quite a transformative tool. It can really change your life in a lot of ways. I know, my grandparents stay in touch with us and their great grandchildren using their phone in ways that, have really exceeded their expectations. And so it's really, when it comes to mental health, I think it's a game changer as well.
Oh yeah, these people, they bring their phones in and they show us like pictures of their grandkids in North Carolina playing baseball, or I mean, it's just a life changer for them.
Yeah. And that's something, the mental health component is something that came up frequently in our conversations over the last couple of months. So it's not just vital resources, but it's really about, the health and wellness of our communities. So thank you for the work that you're doing on that front. Amy, it's really incredible to have you as a partner. So I want to talk now a little bit about how the state of Maine compares to what other states are doing. This is obviously not, the digital divide does not exist only in Maine. It exists across the country. It's a major issue in issues in areas everywhere. And so Susan, I'm hoping from the national perspective, you can give us an idea of how we compare to other states and what other states might be doing that we are not. Any other insight you can give into that?
Well, not surprising, Maine is leading the way. And compared to other states, in many states, they're just standing up broadband offices. And Maine has started with the Connect Maine Authority back in 2005 or 6, and then it is now the Maine Connectivity Authority. Maine also combined their digital equity plan into the BEAD project, which is the infrastructure side of it, as well as the Digital Equity Act, which is all around the digital inclusion efforts that will need to happen across the country. Maine combined it, and they are one of the first states to put their draft up online, being looked at in other states. And we also approach this very different. We approach this from the bottom up, right? We didn't want the state to write a plan where it was all very high level and sort of helicoptering in and, we're here to help you. We really wanted to talk to the people who were the most effective. So during the creation of the plan, all the coalition partners not only met with organizations that support some of our most vulnerable populations, but they also spoke to lived experts who were actually experiencing that. So when the plan got put together, it's really an on the ground, here's what's happening. And I just think that, the partners and the state did a fabulous job of putting this all together. And, it is a shining star out there across the country. So very well done.
Well, I wasn't fishing for compliments, I hope everyone knows, but that is very encouraging to know. And, I think this is really uncharted territory for us right now, and we're kind of all in it together, but hopefully other states and regions can learn from the work that we are doing, the mistakes that we are inevitably making, and the lessons that we're learning from this process. Great, thank you so much. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk more about the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is not necessarily unique to Maine, but that's sort of something that we want to put a lot of emphasis on right now. So let's see, Clara, do you want to talk about the Affordable Connectivity Program? Or Amy, you've also helped a lot of people sign up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. So maybe I'll let you introduce it, Clara, and then Amy, you can tell us about how you've been helping folks sign up for that program.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about it. So the Affordable Connectivity Program is essentially an internet subsidy wherein qualifying households can apply to get $30 off their internet per month. So it's a really great tool, but a pretty small percentage of Mainers know about it and have applied. So I believe, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere around 30% of eligible households in Maine are enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program. So there are a number of eligible households out there that could be getting $30 off of their internet each month. So I'm going to pass it to Amy because I know that Bridgton Public Library has actively been helping people sign up. And I'm just sort of curious as to your experience in that.
Sure. So in order to be able to help people with the application, I had my staff fill out the application. And they all qualified, which, you know, for better or for worse, that's a really good thing. But it was a program that they did not know about, in that they never thought to actually go through the application. And so once they went through the application, well, first of all, that gave them experience, but also it gave them the benefit that they can then talk to other people about. I find that if I can put out a million flyers, I can Facebook post, I can put things in the newspaper, but if my staff talk to people who are coming into the library, or if Rachel talks to people when she's out in the community, that's what matters, and that's what brings people in. And so my staff started talking about this, and so now we are helping people sign up for the ACP. Having said that, these essentially are people who already have some sort of access to the internet. They have to have access to it in order to apply for the benefit. So I don't know how many of the households who are eligible also have access to the internet. So I would be interested to hear from Susan about that, because I can tell you that I can help people sign up for it, but if the infrastructure isn't there for them, then they can't apply for it.
Yeah, you're right, Amy. I mean, we still have many areas across the state where there is just no broadband available, and hopefully with the work of the Maine Connectivity Authority, there'll be those gaps will be completed. Interesting, and Amy and Claire, I just put these numbers together this morning with some help from the Maine Connectivity Authority. In Cumberland County, 43,042 homes are eligible for the ACP benefit, and to date, 12,794 homes are enrolled in the ACP, which leaves the balance of about a little over 30,000 homes. So we have a lot of work to do over the next few months.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's sort of where we're headed as far as a regional coalition goes. We really want to focus on spreading the word about that program, helping people get signed up, and supporting their other digital needs as well in that process. So, well, great. We are coming close to time, but I do want to just tell folks who are watching now and later how they can support digital equity efforts on the local, regional, and state level. Susan, you alluded to the digital equity plan that is out now, open for public comment. And so, Clara, I'm hoping you can maybe post the link in the chat. But are there any other ways that people can get involved? Clara, maybe you can talk about the regional efforts that are going on and some other ways that people can support.
Yeah, so like Susan said, there are 13 partners across the state working on this. So it's not just Cumberland County. So there are regional broadband partners in every part of the state. So depending on where you're from, I would recommend getting in contact with your regional broadband partner or tribal partner to figure out sort of what efforts are already going on. Another big thing is, as Amy said, I think libraries have been working in this realm for a long time. And so I think one of the first things you can do is really reach out to your local library and sort of try to partner with them on this work. And I do want to address Amy March's question in the Q&A. So our sort of initial recommendations for the Cumberland County plan, a lot of it included trying to figure out how to get devices to places like libraries, different community centers and nonprofits to do device lending programs and how to fund those, as well as funding additional staff at those locations to provide on-site technical support and digital equity classes. So Amy, I see you are with the Denmark Library. I would encourage you to reach out to Mia Purcell. She is the regional broadband partner for Oxford County. So I can follow up with you via email, but just wanted to note that.
Great, thanks. And I see Mia is actually in attendance today, so we can make that connection for you. And if you're unsure of who to reach out to, we are connected to all the regional partners, so we can plug you in wherever you fit in best. And we would love to have you join our coalition here in Cumberland County as well. We're excited to continue on this work and to work with all the people who are on this call today, and hopefully new partners going forward, because this is really an issue that impacts everyone, all of our work on a daily basis. And so we thank you all for being here today. We thank you for being partners in this, for being part of really this first one-of-a-kind effort that has been going on over the last few months. And any other questions, please feel free to direct them to Clara and we will get them to the right person. But as far as this webinar goes, we, I think, covered a lot of ground and are very thankful for your presence and your involvement. Thank you all, and hopefully you have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.